more entrepreneurial opportunities and provide them with training programs to help individuals become more self-sufficient. 3, we will improve access to affordable housing. We believe that poor living conditions contribute to crime, and we will upgrade and develop affordable housing to provide solutions so that families can live in safer, more stable environments. 4, we will use technology to fight crime. We will invest in CCTV surveillance networks, smart street lighting, and crime detecting technology to help deter and solve crimes more efficiently. 5, revitalizing sports and community development. We will introduce and upgrade sports facilities across the island and organize regular sporting competitions to keep our young men engaged in structured activities instead of turning to crime. And I say this given the fact that the opportunity for this to take place has been eroded by the squandering of the funds that should be used for youth and sporting activities from the National Lottery after guaranteeing a loan of $80 million and having the National Lottery to finance that loan with $80,000 monthly, leaving absolutely no resources to provide for those programs for young people. We will introduce youth rehabilitation and second chance programs. We will introduce rehabilitation programs for at-risk youth and for first-time offenders, giving them a chance to turn their lives around through education, skills training, and mentorship.
In our last term, we built schools, upgraded health facilities, improved roads, and made life better for thousands of St. Lucians. We didn't just promise, we delivered. And now we're ready to finish what we started. Our next step is bold, but necessary. When elected, the United Workers' Party will introduce national health insurance so every St. Lucian can access quality health care no matter their socio-economic background. Because your health should never depend on your bank account. Let's continue the work. Let's secure your future. Vote UWP for a healthier, stronger St. Lucia.
Philip J. Pierre promised to protect St. Lucia, but instead he sold us out. He gave away Port Castries and the Soufrière waterfront to a foreign company, GPH, for 40 years. Over $1 billion EC dollars ripped from SLASPA, a St. Lucian institution owned and managed by us. Then he handed 4 billion EC of our citizenship by investment money to Galaxy, a Chinese company, for a hotel and a few roads that won't cost more than 500 million EC. Where's the rest of the money? Next, 200 million EC to a company labeled an International Criminal Organization, BMAX, to build just 66 low-income houses. That's $3 million per house. Now, Philip J. Pierre and Wayne Girard are creating a sovereign wealth fund where hundreds of millions of our dollars will be placed under the control of foreign businessmen handpicked by the minister. No transparency, no accountability, no St. Lucian oversight. While St. Lucians can't find jobs, while families can't make ends meet, Pierre gives away our money, our assets, and our future to foreigners. Pierre, Pabo.
Every St. Lucian deserves a safe, decent place to call home. But for too many, that dream feels out of reach. That's why a UWP government will launch a bold, affordable housing initiative. Because housing is not a luxury, it's a right. We'll use unused crown lands in every constituency, and when needed, purchase private lands to expand opportunities. We'll offer accessible financing so young people and low-income families can become proud homeowners. We'll partner with developers and ensure transparency, giving priority to first-time homeowners, young professionals, and those who need it most. Vote UWP. Let's build homes, let's build futures, let's build a stronger St. Lucia together.
Under the SLP, your St. Lucian passport now lasts only 5 years, cut in half what it used to. We've doubled the cost and doubled the hassle. Families, students, business people, travelers, everyone now pays the price for a decision that makes no sense. The United Workers' Party believes in making life easier, not harder. When elected, the UWP will restore your passport validity to 10 years because your time and money matter. Convenience, common sense, care for the people. Vote UWP. We'll bring back the 10-year passport. We'll also bring back good governance.
Malwat? Why them Lucians so make them this?
Suipui, some 2.5% HCSL thing is a tax vibe.
So what that have to do with people getting meg? But just now, to me them people paying VAT already.
Exactly. The tax is calculated on the cost of goods, so one time the price go increase, Kuma. The Lucians end up paying more than 15%.
Mama!
Gasa, just imagine $100 go buy less groceries. People getting poor. Things like rent and utility bills go also increase, Gasa.
Real Malawi vibey?
All them things the people doing to stay healthy, like gym, healthy eating, and safety and security, go be harder to get because people ain't have money.
Partner, if them people have enough money, they go have leftover food for us to eat. The bins go be empty. Wow!
Things real happening to them Lucians. Look out for us again soon. We go show you all more.
St. Lucia is at a crossroads. Mismanagement, incompetence, and rising crime under the Philip J. Pierre administration have left us all struggling. But under Alan Chastanet's leadership, our country flourished. Taxes were lowered, 17 health centers were upgraded, the OKE hospital opened, over $12 million in hospital bills were wiped clean, lifting a burden off of our people. Construction of the state-of-the-art St. Jude Hospital began. The forensic lab was reopened. Homicides were 25% lower than they are today. New schools were built, 30% of our roads rehabilitated, and sports facilities across the country received major upgrades, empowering our youth. He successfully led us through the COVID-19 pandemic, winning global recognition for St. Lucia's top care management. Alan Chastanet, strong leadership to save our St. Lucia.
Life in St. Lucia has become unbearable. Every day, we feel the crushing weight of a government that's out of touch with the struggles of its people. They've collected millions in taxes on fuel, leaving us paying more for gasoline, cooking gas, kerosene, and diesel. And as if that wasn't enough, the Health and Security Levy has made everything more expensive, adding an additional 2.5% to the cost of goods and services. Bus fares have gone up, bread costs more, electricity, water, food, internet, even your mobile credit, it all costs more. For many St. Lucians, their paychecks don't stretch like they used to. Meanwhile, the government has reduced subsidies on flour, making basic necessities harder to afford. And while they raise prices on you, they've removed 700 people from the public assistance list, leaving our most vulnerable families with no support. St. Lucia is paying the price for a government that refuses to care. How much more can we take? How many more sacrifices must we make while they mismanage our country's finances? It's time to fight back, to stand up for our families, our future, and our country. No more excuses, no more broken promises. We can't afford to stay silent. The high cost of living is suffocating us, but together we can make our voices heard. St. Lucia deserves better. Pierre Pabo.
Senator Lisa Joahir, who also serves as the communications director for the St. Lucia Labour Party, continues to blatantly lie and deceive St. Lucians. In a recent press brief, the SLP spokeswoman tried to deny that St. Lucia's agriculture sector declined by 17% in 2023. These are the facts according to the 2023 Social and Economic Review, a document prepared by the Ministry of Finance. On page 32, the opening paragraph reads, "Based on preliminary estimates, the agriculture sector's real value added declined by 17% in 2023. It went further on pages 33 to 38 to highlight the decline in the various agriculture subsectors. Fishing production declined by 4.6%. Livestock production declined by 17.3%. Chicken production declined by 11.7%. Pork production declined by 41.6%. Egg production declined by 7.8%. Banana production declined by 45.5%. Non-banana crops declined by 17.3%. And regional exports of bananas declined by 54%. The future of St. Lucia's food security is in jeopardy under Labour. The UWP has a plan and is ready to right the wrongs of this reckless SLP administration. Our farmers and fisherfolk deserve better. Lisa, Prosper, and Philippe Pierre, pas bon."
At a recent briefing, Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that the custody suites project has been delayed due to bathroom sinks and toilets breaking during shipment. Not just once, but twice.
There were a series of unfortunate events. Number one, there was supposed to have the toilets, the special toilets. They got broken. In shipping. My information is they were sent back to order new ones, and then the yellow ones came back and they sent back the same broken ones. So my information, you see, and a lot.
But here's the truth. The sinks and toilets designed for prison facilities are made of stainless steel, built to withstand extreme conditions and nearly impossible to break in transit. The Prime Minister's claim doesn't add up. This project was initially estimated to cost $1.5 million. Somehow, that budget tripled to $4.5 million. And now there are reports that the costs have spiraled even higher. With every delay and excuse, taxpayers are forced to bear the burden of rising costs, while the government dodges accountability. Why isn't Prime Minister Pierre giving the people the truth about what's really causing the delays and escalating the costs? St. Lucia deserves a leader who takes responsibility, not one who resorts to dubious excuses. Our country demands transparency and honesty, not stories that simply don't hold water.
In 2019, the Alan Chastanet-led United Workers' Party took decisive action to address the healthcare challenges faced by St. Lucians. The UWP secured a US $20 million loan from the World Bank under the Health Systems Strengthening Project. Out of this loan, US $5.5 million was specifically allocated to establish the framework for a national health insurance program. Under this initiative, every St. Lucian would have received up to $75,000 in healthcare coverage on an annual basis, making healthcare more accessible, equitable, and affordable for all. An advisory board of experts, including Dr. Stephen King and Dr. Merle Clark, was assembled to design the framework for this transformative program. However, when the Philip J. Pierre administration took office, they chose to abandon this initiative. Why? Simply because it was started by the United Workers' Party. The consequences of this decision are devastating. Families continue to struggle with medical expenses, hospitals remain overwhelmed, and St. Lucians are left without the healthcare safety net they were excitedly expecting. Where is the accountability? Where is the vision? We would not be facing the current health crisis if the NHI program had been implemented. The National Health Insurance Program was never about politics. It was about people. It would ensure every St. Lucian had access to the care they deserve. Let's set the record straight. The health of our nation should never be sacrificed for politics. It's time to demand a healthcare system that St. Lucians deserve. Labor, Pabo.
On October 20th, 2024, at the SLP's Conference of Delegates in Vieux-Fort, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre made a desperate attempt to rewrite history.
You will remember that the United Workers' Party only gave COVID support to NIC contributors.
This claim is absolutely false. The truth? In July 2020, under the UWP administration, 5,000 St. Lucians who were non-contributors of NIC received $500 per month for 3 months to help them survive the pandemic. Prime Minister Pierre knows the facts, yet he chose to lie to the nation. Why? To mislead and divide. St. Lucia deserves a leader who values integrity, one who speaks the truth, not one who tries to twist it. Pierre Pabo. We need real leadership, not deception. Youth and Sports Minister Kenson Casimir has been caught blatantly lying about the delays with several disciplines related to national school sports. On October 23, 2024, an article published by Terry Finisterre, a well-known sports journalist and a close political ally of Minister Casimir, penned an article titled School Sports Suspended. The story went on to explain that secondary student athletes in St. Lucia would be denied an opportunity to showcase their talents and abilities this term, as school sports has been suspended. It went further to say that this term faced the unusual interruption due to the Julian Alfred homecoming in September. According to Finisterre, one official who wished to remain anonymous told him that the disruption in instruction occasioned by the week of activities, including school rallies and a holiday, in addition to the resources that went into planning the festivities, were all a factor in deciding to cull sports. It is therefore disingenuous and a blatant lie on the part of Minister Casimir to accuse the UWP of fabricating this issue when it was first brought to light by his close friend and colleague. Attempts to salvage the issue were only made due to significant public pressure over the last 2 weeks. Our young athletes deserve leaders who will prioritize their development, not make excuses. It's time for transparency, accountability, and truth. St. Lucia deserves a government that values youth empowerment, not one that sidelines it. Kenson Pabo.
Are you ready to make a difference? Join the movement that aims to make St. Lucia the best place to live, work, visit, and invest. The United Workers' Party is a team of forward thinkers, visionaries, passionate and caring citizens just like you. Together, we can create a brighter future, create safer communities, lower taxes, improve healthcare, and create more opportunities for all. Stand with the UWP and be part of change. Join the United Workers' Party because St. Lucia deserves better.
Youth and Sports Minister Kenson Casimir is under fire now that it has been revealed that he has acquired millions worth of real estate over the last 3.5 years. Since assuming office, Casimir has developed 3 villas in Union Hilltop. He is now in the process of constructing another development in Cap Estate, this time with 5 properties. What makes this transaction suspicious is that Casimir made a $100,000 cash deposit on the property. The total cost of the property is about $273,000. Compounding the situation is that a contractor, who is also a political financier of Casimir, is the one developing the minister's newly acquired Cap Estate property. This same contractor was awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for rehabilitation work done on the Daransami cricket ground in preparation for World Cup cricket, as well as numerous other contracts in the constituency of Grosile. The allegations being leveled against the minister is that he has received kickbacks from the contractor for the capacity development in return for the awarding of multi-million-dollar contracts around the constituency. Has Casimir filed these developments with the Integrity Commission? Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that he would have a zero tolerance for corruption in his cabinet, although he has ignored numerous glaring examples of corruption amongst his cabinet colleagues. Will this be another situation that Philippe Pierre blindly ignores? St. Lucians deserve answers. Kingston and Philippe Pierre, Pabo.
The United Workers' Party reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the health and well-being of every St. Lucian. When re-elected, we will reinstate the National Health Insurance NHI program, a vital initiative that was regrettably abandoned by the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP. This decision by the SLP has left thousands of St. Lucians vulnerable with limited access to affordable quality health care. The United Workers' Party will correct this injustice because we believe that health care is not a privilege, it is a fundamental human right that every citizen is entitled to. The National Health Insurance Program was designed to create a comprehensive, inclusive, and sustainable healthcare system that ensures no one is left behind or left out. And that is regardless of economic status. Under the leadership of the United Workers' Party, the NHI will be reinstated to provide the following benefits to St. Lucians. 1. Comprehensive health coverage. Every St. Lucian will have access to essential healthcare services, which includes doctor consultations, hospitalization, specialist care, diagnostic tests, maternity services, prescription medication, and emergency medical attention. No one will be denied care because of their inability to pay. Secondly, we'll reduce the financial burden. Too many families and individuals face the impossible choice between seeking medical care and meeting basic living expenses. The NHI will significantly reduce out-of-pocket expenses, making healthcare more affordable for all, especially for vulnerable groups like the elderly, children, low-income families, and single parents. 3. Timely and efficient medical attention. Long wait times and delayed treatments often result in worsened health outcomes. With the NHI, patients will receive timely care, preventing complications and reducing the strain on our already burdened healthcare system. Number 4, we will focus on preventative care. Preventative health care reduces long-term costs and improves quality of life. The NHI will cover preventative services such as routine checkups, screenings, immunizations, and health education programs to promote healthier lifestyles and reduce the prevalence of chronic lifestyle diseases. Number 5, strengthening the healthcare system. The NHI will provide the financial stability needed to upgrade medical facilities, invest in modern equipment, and improve the working conditions of healthcare professionals. This will enhance the overall quality of healthcare services across the island. And 6, peace of mind for all St. Lucians. Knowing that quality healthcare is always within reach and accessible provides a sense of security. Families will no longer live in fear of medical emergencies they cannot afford, and every child will have the opportunity to grow up healthy and strong. With the United Workers' Party, St. Lucians will certainly have a healthier future. The United Workers' Party has a proven track record of investing in St. Lucia's health sector, from improving hospital infrastructure to increasing the availability of medical resources. Our vision for St. Lucia includes a robust healthcare system where no citizen is left to suffer due to lack of accessibility or affordability. The abandonment of the NHI by the SLP was a betrayal of the people's trust, but under the United Workers' Party, we will restore this critical program because we believe in a St. Lucia where healthcare is accessible, affordable, and reliable for every citizen. When you vote for the United Workers' Party, you are voting for a healthier, stronger, and more secure St. Lucia. Your health is our priority, and we will deliver. A United Workers' Party government plans to change this situation. This crisis demands more than just words. It requires leadership action and solutions. As a government, we will take decisive steps to restore law and order, provide opportunities for our people, and take our communities back from crime and violence. We will do the following. 1, empowering our youth with after-school and weekend programs. We will introduce holistic after-school and weekend programs that keep our youth engaged in sports, music, technology, and vocational training, providing positive alternatives to crime and idleness. Number 2, creating more economic opportunities. Many of our young men turn to crime due to lack of employment, and so we will work to ensure that we provide support to small business, rehabilitation programs for at-risk youth, and for first-time offenders, giving them a chance to turn their lives around through education, skills training, and mentorship.
At a recent briefing, Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that the Custody Suites project has been delayed due to bathroom sinks and toilets breaking during shipment. Not just once, but twice.
There were a series of unfortunate events. Number 1, there was supposed to have the toilets, the special toilets. They got broken. When in shipping. My information is they will send back to all the new ones, and then the other ones came back and they sent back the same broken ones. So my information, you see, and a lot.
But here's the truth. The sinks and toilets designed for prison facilities are made of stainless steel, built to withstand extreme conditions and nearly impossible to break in transit. The Prime Minister's claim doesn't add up. This project was initially estimated to cost $1.5 million. Somehow, that budget tripled to $4.5 million. And now there are reports that the costs have spiraled even higher. With every delay and excuse, taxpayers are forced to bear the burden of rising costs, while the government dodges accountability. Why isn't Prime Minister Pierre giving the people the truth about what's really causing the delays and escalating the costs? St. Lucia deserves a leader who takes responsibility, not one who resorts to dubious excuses. Our country demands transparency and honesty, not stories that simply don't hold water.
Life in St. Lucia has become unbearable. Every day, we feel the crushing weight of a government that's out of touch with the struggles of its people. They've collected millions in taxes on fuel, leaving us paying more for gasoline, cooking gas, kerosene, and diesel. And as if that wasn't enough, the Health and Security Levy has made everything more expensive, adding an additional 2.5% to the cost of goods and services. Bus fares have gone up, bread costs more, electricity, water, food, internet, even your mobile credit, it all costs more. For many St. Lucians, their paychecks don't stretch like they used to. Meanwhile, the government has reduced subsidies on flour, making basic necessities harder to afford. And while they raise prices on you, they've removed 700 people from the public assistance list, leaving our most vulnerable families with no support. St. Lucia is paying the price for a government that refuses to care. How much more can we take? How many more sacrifices must we make while they mismanage our country's finances, it's time to fight back, to stand up for our families, our future, and our country. No more excuses, no more broken promises. We can't afford to stay silent. The high cost of living is suffocating us, but together we can make our voices heard. St. Lucia deserves better. Pierre Pabo.
In our last term, we built schools, upgraded health facilities, improved roads, and made life better for thousands of St. Lucians. We didn't just promise, we delivered. And now we're ready to finish what we started. Our next step is bold, but necessary. When elected, the United Workers' Party will introduce national health insurance so every St. Lucian can access quality health care no matter their socio-economic background. Because your health should never depend on your bank account. Let's continue the work. Let's secure your future. Vote UWP for a healthier, stronger St. Lucia.
The United Workers' Party reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the health and well-being of every St. Lucian. When re-elected, we will reinstate the National Health Insurance NHI program, a vital initiative that was regrettably abandoned by the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP. This decision by the SLP has left thousands of St. Lucians vulnerable with limited access to affordable, quality health care. The United Workers' Party will correct this injustice because we believe that health care is not a privilege, it is a fundamental human right that every citizen is entitled to. The National Health Insurance Program was designed to create a comprehensive, inclusive, and sustainable healthcare system that ensures no one is left behind or left out. And that is regardless of economic status. Under the leadership of the United Workers' Party, the NHI will be reinstated to provide the following benefits to St. Lucians. 1. Comprehensive health coverage. Every St. Lucian will have access to essential healthcare services, which includes doctor consultations, hospitalization, specialist care, diagnostic tests, maternity services, prescription medication, and emergency medical attention. No one will be denied care because of their inability to pay. Secondly, we'll reduce the financial burden. Too many families and individuals Special good morning to you, the members of the media. A special good morning to those listening to us on live stream. And of course, this morning on the United Workers' Party press briefing, I have two of my colleagues here, the two deputy political leaders of the United Workers' Party, in Mr. Guy Joseph, who will be addressing us this morning on matters related to the estimates that were presented last week. And of course, we have the other deputy political leader, Dominic Fede, who will be addressing us on our main industry, the subject of tourism. But to start the ball rolling, I would like to call first and foremost Mr. Guy Joseph, who will be speaking on the subject of the estimates. Please welcome Mr. Guy Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montut, and a pleasant good morning to everyone, especially those following us in the diaspora and locally. Today I am here to give a very brief summary of the estimates of revenue and expenditure as presented by the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for the financial year 2025-2026. And I will just summarize one of the pages of the estimates so you can get a sense of what we are expecting. First of all, in tax revenue, the government expects to collect $1,450,100,000 in revenue. $1,450,000,000. I will just use that part of the number. So it's $1.4 billion in revenue. In non-tax revenue, the expectation is that the government will collect $171.9 million in non-tax revenue. So I will make a comparison between what the Prime Minister has presented in his budget and what obtained when the United Workers' Party was in government, so that you, the people of St. Lucia, can make a determination for yourself as to whether you are better off under this budget or if you are better off before. I also need to highlight that the total expenditure of government is expected to be in the region of $2.1 billion. Now, we hear these figures, and a lot of people conclude that the country has money because you hear for the first time, and you hear the parliamentarians talking about a first-time $2 billion budget. But let me remind St. Lucians, a budget is a projection of estimates of revenue and expenditure for a financial year. This is not money that St. Lucia has today. In fact, as you would observe from this budget, more than 3/4 of the proposed estimates of revenue and expenditure will be taxes paid by the people of St. Lucia. I want you to keep this in mind. So when you hear the government boasting about a $2 billion budget, just remember, you, the people of St. Lucia, including myself, we would be the ones accounting for about 1.5 billion of that money. And I will give you a breakdown so you can make a determination, because budgets are nice figures that are presented, but the reality is very different. Ministries are given allocations. Are they able to spend it? We would have heard the member for Viewfort South talk about allocations for the fisheries complex in his constituency, but nothing has happened for 3 years. Now, I want to compare this against the budget presented by the United Workers' Party in 2019. And there is a deliberate reason why we are going to 2019, because this was the budget prior to COVID. And I believe this is a very good baseline, because COVID was an anomaly, so we cannot use the COVID reflection of the performance of the budget, because the country and the world was on lockdown. So here are some questions I want you to keep in mind. Are you better off today than you were in 2019? And I ask you the following questions. Is there anything better? The cost of living, is it better than it was in 2019? Our roads, are they better? Healthcare, is it better? The crime situation, is it better? The social safety net, where we had added 1,000 people to the list of persons getting government assistance as poor and needy, 700 was removed by the St. Lucia Labour Party. So our social safety nets, which included subsidies on rice, flour, sugar, subsidies in the public transport system. Remember, we kept on paying some rebate to the minibus drivers so that there would not be an increase in bus fares. Subsidies on cooking gas. All of these is what is covered on the safety net, the assistance for electricity bills. So, with this being said, let us examine a few numbers in the budget so that we can better understand what is at stake. In 2019, the budget amount was $1,639,000,000. In 2025-26, the budget is $2,058,000,000. Now, ask yourself, what is the difference? A difference of $419 million. Taxes that was collected in 2019 was $1,137,000,000. In 2025-2026, the government expects to collect taxes of $1,450,000,000. Now, I want St. Lucians, these numbers may be big numbers. A $2 billion budget really is $2,000 million. That is the money that the government expects to spend. But keep in mind, there is an increase of $313 million in taxes from 2019 to 2025-26 budget. And where is this $313 million coming from? Now understand that it's not $313 million in taxes, you know. That's in addition. So in 2019-20, you paid $1,137,000,000 in taxes. In 2025-26, the government expects you to pay $1,450,000,000 in taxes. And let's go down the line so you can understand what is happening. Bread moved from 25 cents in 2019. It is 45 cents in 2025-26. That's a difference of 20 cents per loaf of bread. And that is the regular loaf of bread. Bus fares for short routes moved up by 25 cents. For the medium distance routes, it moved up by 50 cents. And bus fares for the longer routes like Micoud and Soufrière and Vieux-Fort and these areas, it moved up by $1. Gas in 2019 was $13.09 a gallon. It is now $16.50, a difference of $3.41 per gallon. Diesel was $12.91. It is now $16.50, a difference of $3.59. Cooking gas that was $32.01 is now $36, a difference of $3.99. Kerosene, although it's in small amounts, was $7.15. It's now $9.50, a difference of $2.75. But here is what is interesting. We talk about the importance of the food import bill and the need for the Department of Agriculture or the Ministry of Agriculture to promote more local production. But here's what has happened. Our agricultural allocation in 2019 was 48,500,000. Today in 2025-2026, agriculture is down to 42,400,000, a difference of $6.1 million less. Why in this present environment would we have a reduction in the allocation for the Ministry of Agriculture when our farmers are struggling to get oil, to get the basic inputs? We see a major reduction. The other one that caught my attention was our social programs, and I'm coming to this. On the social programs, in 2019-2020, we had an allocation of $61.1 million. In 2025-2026, the social program allocation is down to $58.5 million. It is down by $2.6 million. That means less people will get help from government in this financial year. If we do a further analysis and breakdown, and that is what the government is not telling you in the budget, how you have been impacted. So I will just do maybe 3 areas. If you are traveling from Viewfort to Castries on a weekly basis, 5 days a week, for the month you are paying an extra $40. Because you're paying $2 extra a day, 5 days, that's $10. And 4 weeks, so that is $40. And if that same worker traveling from Viewfort has to go up to Grosile, which has an additional 50 cents in some instances, you're paying an extra $20. That is $6. That is $60 a month. A total of $720 increase just in bus fares for the year. That is a 300 days year, working days. I have not checked any of the additional things you may do in between. Under a UWP government, $5 would buy you 20 loaves of bread. Lauten $5, ou te sa gen 20 pain epi. Today, under this SLP administration, with additional taxes, $5 will only buy you 11.1 loaves. Pitet yo kain pou koupe an pain ek ba wan ti choade. Si ou dépenser $5. So ou sa oni gen 11 pain pour $5. A ba flambeau ou te sa gen 20 pain bay fami ou pour $20. Gas. With $100, because people don't go to the pumps and buy gas by gallons. They tell you, I want $20 gas or I want $40 gas. So $100 gas for your vehicle would buy you 7.6 gallons in 2019. And the world market price is even around the same price that it was back then. Today, on the SLP, you can only buy 6 gallons of gas with that same $100. Diesel, you could buy 7.75 gallons of gas. Of diesel, today you can only buy 6 gallons of diesel. So you have to ask yourself, all of this additional money that the government is having us to pay, where is it going to? So I go to healthcare. The Prime Minister, when he introduced the 2.5% health and security levy, indicated that it would have been for 2 years, and we were asking for the removal of that levy. What do we see? We see no allocations in the budget to remove this. But I want to bring you back to what the Labour Party has done. Prior to the implementation of the levy in 2023, the recurrent budget for health was 178 million. 178.1 million. Today, keep this in mind, in 2024-2025, after they implemented the levy, the budget went down for health to 169 million. It went down by $9.1 million. So when they were collecting $40 million from St. Lucians, all of us taxpayers, for the health and security levy, the budget went down by 9 million. The Prime Minister also indicated that they would have collected in the last financial year in the region of $44 million for health and security. Today what we have seen is the health budget has only been increased to 188 million, and I think I should have the breakdown that I can give it to you, because I don't want persons to say we are just saying what we want. So for health, we have a total, yes, 2025-26, 188 million. So while you have collected in excess of $80 million in health and security levy, you have only increased the health sector by $10 million from what it was when you introduced the levy. So is that 2.5% that St. Lucians are paying, is it really for health, or is it to cover the largesse of this government and their reckless spending? Because the figures in the budget estimates do not reflect the increases that are required. Now think of it. With the disaster that we have in the health sector, with all the shortages at OKEU, at St. Jude, and at our health centers, tell me, how will $10 million address that problem when the government was indicating that they need in excess of $75 million to fix the health sector? You see why, as St. Lucians, we must take an interest. And don't be fooled by the nice figures that are presented in the budget. Security in 2023-2024 was 86 million. It is now in the new budget 92 million, a difference of less than $6 million. So the $80 million that the government has collected in health and security levy, they have spent less than 20 million in the budget. Now, St. Lucians, ask yourself, who is paying this 2.5% health and security? It is the people of St. Lucia. And it is the local people, you know. You remember the government waived the 2.5% levy for that construction project that is going on, which is supposed to be an office building being built by a foreign company. The government waived the 2.5% for this company, but is refusing to give any reprieve to St. Lucians. So, as we reflect on the contents of this budget, you can see from the figures that I have presented, security is up by less than 6 million and health is up by 10 million. Yet still the government collected just in the last financial year 44 million. Now, if they expect to collect another 313 million, I expect that by the end of the year 2025-26 budget cycle, they would have collected in excess of $50 million for health and security levy. Yet still, they have only allocated about $15 million of that total, or to be more precise, 16 million of that total to health and security. So, Mr. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, this is what you should explain to us. In 2 years, $80 million in health and security. Yet still, we are not seeing the corresponding expenditure in the two sectors that are concerned. There's been a lot of debate and discussion about the leader of the opposition not addressing or not speaking at the budget debate. I think I need to take a couple of minutes and highlight that the standing orders of the parliament is very clear. There is no set speaking order. It is a matter of courtesy that there comes an understanding as to who speaks and when they speak. And conveniently, the Prime Minister could have said that the shaking of hands to extend the sign of peace is a matter of option. Isn't that what the Prime Minister said? It's his choice if he wants to. Other than the Prime Minister who gives the closing remarks at the budget, or the presenter of a bill who gives the final discussion on the bill, anybody can speak anywhere in the budget as long as they switch on their mics and they catch the eye of the speaker. There is no other rule. So all of this discussion about the leader of the opposition wants to decide when he is speaking. He is not the one who decides when he is speaking. It is the rules that is established in the standing orders that gives the cue as to who speaks or when they choose to speak. And if no one chooses to speak, then the presenter of the document or the paper that is before the House, whether it be the bill, a budget, or anything, can close the debate. So, the government side cannot dictate to the leader of the opposition when he speaks. Once he speaks before the leader of government, not the leader of government business, the prime minister who's the presenter of the budget, once he is allowed to close his debate. So, we need to deal with this thing the way that it is. I believe it is very sad that the Labour Party, it is their budget. If the leader of the opposition decides there's nothing in this budget that is beneficial to the people of St. Lucia, that's what he is going to say. It is for the government officials, the ministers of government. They have spent an entire year. They have executed a budget of over $1.7 billion, and you have nothing to report to the people of St. Lucia. I believe any minister who does not report on how well he uses his budget and how he utilizes it should never be allowed to have a new budget to spend. So you had a whole year, you are given hundreds of millions of dollars under your control to dictate the policy of how this money is spent. You come to the parliament, you sit for 2 days, you have nothing to say, and St. Lucia is supposed to vote, or the parliament is going to vote another $2 billion to allow these same incompetent people who cannot even report on what they did previously. Think of it, business persons. You give a budget to, let's say, your advertising department, your head of advertising. And at the end of the year, they cannot report to you how many programs they run in advertising, how much market share did they gain, what they did. You're going to vote a new budget for them without getting a report from them on what transpired in the previous year. That's not how it operates. So it is Ernest Hille and Richard Frederick, the two ministers, one a deputy prime minister, the other one a minister in the prime minister's office, holding key portfolios, the main revenue earner for St. Lucia, tourism. And my colleague will touch on it, but I need to say this so that we can understand what is at stake here. A government is elected to report on its achievements to the people of St. Lucia. Do not come and use the leader of the opposition as an excuse for your non-performance, because I believe that both ministers copped out of responding. I believe the Minister of Housing had nothing to respond to. We are still waiting for the high-rise buildings in cul-de-sac. I gave it my full support. We are still waiting for all the low-cost houses and all the promises that was made to the people of St. Lucia. 4 years into office, and the Minister of Housing has nothing to report other than to sit and wait for when the leader of the opposition speaks so that he can attack what the leader of the opposition says rather than report on his achievements and accomplishments. We were expecting the Minister of Housing to come and tell us how much more vomit he has eaten since his famous statement of "I just start eating my vomit." So I have not seen any houses. I have not seen any developments. So I want to hear from the Minister of Housing. And I will leave the tourism part for my colleague, former Minister of Tourism, to deal with. So St. Lucia, look at the thickness of this book that we call the Budget Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure for 2025-2026. You see the thickness of this book? Dr. Kenny Anthony concluded that as he perused through the pages of this book, maybe Vieux-Fort South was mentioned once or twice. So all the things that are in this book, obviously, if they're not going to take care of Vieux-Fort South, that has been loyal to the Labour Party for decades, what do you think will happen to Micoud South and Choiseul? And I know there is very little. I saw 2 allocations of $10,000 a piece for some things in Castries Southeast. I didn't hear anything about finishing the center that we started. I didn't see anything about roads. So I didn't see no new housing developments. So St. Lucia, this $2 billion budget, I think that book is almost as heavy as the $2 billion, really has nothing in it for the people of St. Lucia. Let me tell you, as I close, SLP expects you, in addition to all the taxes you have been paying, to pay another $300 million in taxes. And I did a quick calculation. Our workforce is about 100,000. So if you are going to just break simple math, just break it down, 300 million by, you divide it by the 100,000, and I know not all the 300 will come from the workers directly, businesses, other things you import, but it is every business that makes money in St. Lucia, it is based on what people pay them. So it is still the working people. Even if you are unemployed and somebody who is employed give you money to go and buy something and you pay tax, it is still the working person. So, on average, you would be required based on this budget, after all the taxes you paid in 2024, 2025, you will be expected to pay an additional $3,000 in taxes for the year. Now that is added to the price of bread I told you, and the price of fuel, and all the other things. Can you imagine a government passing a $2 billion budget and expect the people of St. Lucia in these hard times to pay an additional $300 million in taxes? And then healthcare is only increased by $10 million. And crime is only increased by less than 6 million, maybe about 5.8 or thereabout. And yet still we are hearing that VAT is set to go up because the IMF has requested, in order to meet the obligations of this budget, that VAT will have to be increased. Now the government, though election is around the corner, they will not announce the VAT quickly. But trust me, they can always come with a supplementary budget after an election and increase VAT. So I want you, the people of St. Lucia, to understand that if you are required to pay an additional $3,000 a year in taxes, you can divide it by 12 months and you know that this is another $250 you are paying a month in taxes. And if you add the bus fare, of 50, that's another 300. And if you add the price of bread, that is doubled. I mean, when I look at it, I am very saddened by the fact that this government did not announce more measures that would bring relief to the average St. Lucian. People are feeling the pain. People cannot take care of themselves to eat properly. They cannot take care of themselves health-wise. People's houses are mashing up. You know how much for a sheet of plywood? A sheet of plywood that was $90 is about $200 now, you know. The poor people cannot even fix a plywood house in this country. And yet still, all we are seeing is increased taxes by this government. The final point I want to make. SLASPA has been on strike. What have we heard? Unforeseen, on sick out. How can a sick out be an unforeseen circumstance? Even the board and management of SLASPA will send out a misleading press release, and people who are anxiously awaiting the arrival of their cargo from overseas, from the UK. You know where all this cargo was discharged? In St. Vincent, because SLASPA's workers were on sick out. And the government is pretending as if nothing has happened. They now have to wait for the boat to come back, go and pick up the cargo in St. Vincent and come back here. I want to ask, is that as a result of SLASPA not making the money that is required? Because GPH is collecting the bulk of the money at the ports, and we would have to pay increased freight. And understand what America said. Every cruise line or every cargo ship that is made in or built in China and picks up cargo from any port in the United States will be required to pay $1 million levy or fees. Understand how a ship comes there with about 350 containers. If you do a quick breakdown, you're looking at an increase of $3,000 per container out of Miami. That is added to the already 6,000 plus US you are paying. So a container is likely to cost you now 10,000 US to come out of Miami to St. Lucia. We did not hear a single announcement in this budget as to how we are going to tackle the rising prices that we see in this country. Yet still, the government is boasting about achievements. A couple things are sure to happen. If Labour remains in office, VAT will increase. Fuel will increase. Taxes on goods will increase. And St. Lucians will not be able to afford to make a living. And yet still, our general services have not improved. I call on all St. Lucians to call on your parliamentary representatives who are in charge of putting this budget together. Tell them to tell you how you, the average St. Lucian, will benefit from this $2 billion budget that they are boasting about, because obviously it is for the largesse of government, not for the benefit of the people of St. Lucia. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guy Joseph, for your review of the estimates as presented last week. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on our next speaker, and that is the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, Dominic Fede, who will speak on the tourism industry.
Thank you, Spider. Good morning, members of the media. So contrary to what you have heard about tourism is doing so well, I would like to say that the tourism industry is under severe pressure in St. Lucia. The latest report from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority suggests that the current winter would have fallen on very hard times. In other words, it's a very bad start to the year 2025. Now, the report, which I do have in my possession, was published on the 11th of March, 2025. And this is the report right here. And it's 22 pages long, and it really makes for very bad reading and paints a rather bleak picture of the tourism situation in the country. It suggests that the Canadian market is down 20%. Yes, you heard right. 20, not 2, not 5, not 4. 20%. Now, Canada is the third largest market for us. Very crucial. And we have no explanation from the minister, or neither did he find it necessary for us to tell us that in the report released by his department that Canada is down 20%. The UK market, our second most important, but maybe the most crucial in terms of room nights, because the UK market maybe outpaces the American market in room nights. And that market has slumped by 10%. You've heard right. 10% based on the report from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. The French market, very important market as well. That market has slumped by 14%. Huge numbers. Precipice collapse in the tourism sector. But yet the minister stays silent in Parliament, playing politics with the people's business when we wanted to hear from him what are the strategies, what are the remedial measures to ensure that you deal with this. He has never found it necessary. He spoke to the press yesterday and made the most outrageous comment about why he didn't speak, and suggested in another forum that Alan Chastanet prevented him from speaking. You are the leader of government business in your capacity as Deputy Prime Minister. And as leader of government business, you are trying to tell the people of St. Lucia that the leader of the opposition prevented you from speaking? This is outrageous. This is the most disgraceful comment I've ever heard in the history of politics. And what it says about you, Mr. Minister, is that you are full of contempt for the intelligence of the people of St. Lucia to utter that statement. It is only your own fault that you chose not to speak. You are in control of the Parliament. Now, the yachting sector of which you preside over has also fallen on hard times. The numbers there suggest that there is a decline by 17% in the number of yacht calls. 186 less yachts came to St. Lucia in January compared to January of last year, says your own report, the St. Lucia Tourism Authority latest report. We are now in April, but we're only been given the report for January, and that was published, members of the media, in the month of March. Why so late? The same situation in the CIP, where we're now due for about 2 years of reports from the CIP sector, where billions of dollars are involved. The same situation from the minister. I call that incompetence. And incompetence usually leads to failure if you do not have a timely documentation of stats so that markets can make informed decisions. Then unfortunately what we're going to have is chaos. So no wonder Virgin Atlantic has now pulled out. No wonder they have circulated a bulletin showing the changes they are making to their routes in the Caribbean. And I don't want to say anything here that you can say, well, that's just Fade's words. I'm bringing all the facts to substantiate every point that I'm making here today. And so here's Virgin Atlantic, and I want to read for you. It's a bulletin that came out on the 28th of March, 2025. It shows that as we continue to optimize our network, we regularly review the destinations we fly to. From January 2026, we will increase our direct flights to Montego Bay, Jamaica. So Virgin is increasing their flights to Jamaica because Jamaica is watching their business. Jamaica is not being distracted by the opposition. Jamaica is focused. Jamaica is strategic. And Jamaica now, because of how well they run their business, they're getting increased airlift from Virgin Atlantic. Now, what's happening to St. Lucia? The same letter goes on to say that before we even go there, it says, we're also delighted to start 3 times weekly seasonal winter to Cancun, to Mexico from this October. Mexico, Cancun, doing well. Again, those people are very, 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 very wise business people. The changes mean that unfortunately we will be suspending our seasonal service to St. Lucia. So no more flights to St. Lucia. And the minister, in a budget speech, doesn't believe that he owes the people of St. Lucia an answer to this very vexing issue of losing airlift to St. Lucia. Is it also true, Mr. Minister, that TUI has left as well? Let us know whether that flight in the Dreamliner Thomson Air, whether they are leaving as well. You have lost, since coming into office, American Airlines from Dallas, a historic flight, which is important in the U.S. market because Texas is an all-around tourist market because of the very severe winter months and very severe summers as well. And so it was a tremendous mistake when on your watch, we lost the Dallas flight. The United Workers' Party also left you American Airlines from Chicago, and that went as well because you cannot manage the tourism sector. But we have to ask why. Why are airlines pulling out from St. Lucia? Why are the numbers of tourists coming to the destination down? Is it because of this letter from the SLHTA, St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association? And this is what they had to say about the urgent security concerns in Rodney Bay, Grosley, and surrounding areas. And under the banner of this letter, there is a subheading which reads in bold, Crimes Against Visitors. And the SLHTA CEO, Mr. Noorani Aziz, signed by also the President, Erwin Louisi, and is copied to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, a whole host of cabinet ministers, the constituency rep, Kenson Casimir, and other people within the private sector as well in the Chamber and the Manufacturers Association. And the hoteliers listed in very graphic detail that recent reports and online discussions highlighting an alarming increase in crimes targeting visitors including armed robberies. I want to read this for you again, Mr. Minister, just in case you haven't read this letter. Armed robberies, theft, and assaults. These incidents not only create personal distress, but also pose a direct threat to St. Lucia's reputation as a premier travel destination. The hoteliers are very concerned about the levels of crime. And by the way, I just want to say that this letter does not only represent hoteliers, because it comes from the St. Lucia Hospitality and Tourism Association. So the allied members, DMCs, dayboat charters, people who are doing tourism attractions, taxi drivers, they're all members of this, the premier tourism organization in St. Lucia. And they are bringing to the police commissioner's attention the level of crime that is being afflicted on a daily basis on tourists. The letter goes on to state, with visitor reviews and travel advisories shaping public perception, unchecked crime can have long-term consequences on arrival numbers and business sustainability. Rightly so. So they're saying in this letter that they are worried about the reviews. People can go on TripAdvisor. People can go on Viator. People can go on other sites and tell people simply don't come to St. Lucia. We have been robbed. We have been burgled. We have been harassed. And this is crucial to deal with. So while you're there in the parliament attacking Alan Chastanet and, playing around with the people's business as to who should speak where, this is what's happening to the development of our country. A very crucial area that you should be dealing with as the Minister for Tourism. Whenever I've had circumstances like these, I made them my priority. In fact, I didn't wait for a letter like this to come to me. I went to the hoteliers and I asked them what their problems were. I went and I met with industry players, small businesses, and to ask them, how can I help? That's how we do it in the United Workers' Party. Immediate interventions are needed to restore confidence among tourists and hospitality stakeholders. So they are losing confidence. You are also the Minister for Investment. And investors, they speak to each other. And when you have a report like this coming from your premier hospitality private sector organization, this has severe implications on the potential investors coming in to the country. I note as well a very, very, very slow implementation rate of several tourism projects in the country. The airport project, a very important one, and there's been no real update from the minister or anyone in government as to how that is progressing. There has been no real work. The United Workers' Party left a very robust financing arrangement where we have increased and instituted an airport development tax on visitors coming to the country. The amount was $35 on every passenger that came to St. Lucia. So last year, it would have meant that if you've had 400,000 like we did last year, then that would be 400,000 multiplied by $35 per passenger coming through. And while you've made fun of us making sure that this was a dedicated fund that went towards financing the airport, you have questioned where the lockbox have been. It is for you to tell us how much money have been collected so far in that lockbox, or whether your government has decided to go in a different direction when it comes to financing the airport, a major infrastructure for the development of the tourism industry. We see critical infrastructure, like the Mon Lay-by is taking forever to complete. I don't know how, a simple lookout spot where the vendors are relying for their daily living. You guys have had that facility closed for several years. You guys have impacted people's livelihoods. You guys have disrupted people's flow. You speak to taxi drivers, they're having a difficult time. You speak to vendors, they're having a difficult time in this country. But yet the minister goes out there and boasts about tourism, the best year in 2024. Nothing further from the truth. We also are disappointed in the minister's other portfolio, that he didn't address issues pertaining to the CIP, especially given the fact that the US has made it clear that it is reviewing its visa regime and are very concerned about countries with CIP programs and very weak security and due diligence checks and balances. This would have severe implications on thousands of St. Lucians needing to travel to the United States to do business for medical reasons and to visit family and friends, of course. No word from the minister in the budget as to what the CIP department intends to do to ensure that we can give more confidence to our international friends who remain concerned about our declining CIP situation. The EU Parliament has just voted to include countries with CIP programs where visas could be imposed. It would mean that this would have severe implications for St. Lucians traveling to nearby Martinique, for example, a critical hub for medical assistance, medical interventions for many St. Lucian families who choose to go across the waters via ferry because of our limitations here in St. Lucia with healthcare provision. The Minister of Housing did not speak. And that's disappointing, and my colleague touched on that. Other observations about the budget in the summary includes that while the government is going to tax you over $300 million in tax revenue since coming to office, we have seen that they plan to tax you an additional $87 million in tax revenue just in this budget year alone. It's almost $100 million. And while it is easy for the government to write this on a piece of paper, it is very difficult on you, the people of St. Lucia, your pocket. You are the ones that will have to pay this. You are the ones that will have to struggle. You are the ones that will have to make this sacrifice for these new taxes. The government also plans to spend, just in this year alone, $258 million increase in total expenditure. So rather than sitting down and saying, let's work on the wastages, let's see how we can save the people of St. Lucia some monies, let's reduce the cost of operation so that we may not need to tax the people of St. Lucia more, but we can instead give them a tax break. The government proudly says we have a $2 billion budget, and the increase from last year is $258 million in new expenditure. While the Prime Minister boasts about surpluses, he's happy to tell you that they have had a primary surplus. The United Workers' Party, we've had years of primary surpluses, especially in the pre-COVID years as well. But what the Prime Minister fails to tell you is that there is an overall deficit of $202 million. And that is the bottom line. And let me distinguish between what is a primary and overall surplus. You see, a primary surplus only takes into account your expenses versus your revenue before taking out the interest that you need to pay on your loans. The overall surplus takes into account the full picture, includes your interest as well as all your other expenses. Because, you see, the country cannot say that they're not going to pay its interest. We have to make sure that we pay our interest. And so the overall deficits have been in all the years that this administration has come to government. So they've widened the deficit because this is an election budget. In the 258 million, they're increasing the capital expenditure because this is monies for them to go around and to do their favorite projects at your expense, you, the people of St. Lucia. They state that their net financing or their plans to borrow is $335,496,530. That's a significant amount of new borrowing from this government that you, the people of St. Lucia, will have to pay for in the future. Now, a lot has been said about the unemployment rate, where the Prime Minister has said that we've had the best unemployment rate on record. There's nothing more foolhardy than that. Nothing further from the truth. This is nothing but an intellectual fabrication of the facts. Here are the facts. In the year 2022, the Economic and Social Review stated clearly that they were changing the methodology or the way in which government would start to calculate the unemployment situation in the country. Instead of using the central statistic model, which is our local stats office, they have decided to use the International Labour Organization's method. In the International Labour Organization's method, they have shortened the time in which you stop looking for a job. So if you stop looking for a job at a shorter time, they will then consider that you are not unemployed because you have stopped looking. But it doesn't account for the fact that you are home sitting on the couch watching television, hoping that you can find a new stream of income. That is the reality. In putting together the Economic and Social Review of the year 2022, the statisticians warned the government. They said that the year 2022 ought not to be compared to any other year before because they have changed the method in the manner that the unemployment situation is measured in the country. And so what we have seen is a public relations stunt by this government. They are here trying to fool you, the people of St. Lucia. It's the same thing they have done with the pensioners. Central government pensioners were the ones affected. I think it was only about 350 something people. But they went on this big PR campaign to tell you, the people of St. Lucia, that they have done something good for the pensioners. The amount was pittance that they have increased to the pensioners. I am happy that our pensioners are doing better off, by all means. But we must also now place the facts where they belong. We must tell the people of St. Lucia the truth, that we still have thousands of St. Lucian workers, thousands of St. Lucian pensioners who are registered with the National Insurance Corporation who would also like to see a significant increase in their pensions. So we make that distinction. We understand that this is an election year, and we understand that the government is in panic mode. And so I want to put you, the people, on alert that the government will do everything possible to make a very bleak situation, whether it is unemployment, whether it is the infrastructure of this country, whether it is agriculture or tourism or manufacturing or education. They will try to paint a rosy picture of a bleak situation. With these words, I thank you, and we open up the floor for questioning. Any questions? The leader of the opposition was very prepared to speak at the budget, but he felt it was crucial, given what's happening with the CIP situation in the country. These are significant headwinds that is affecting us. Given what's happening with the lead sector, tourism. I mean, tourism contributes in direct contribution to the economy about 40%. Another indirect contribution about 20%. So those two means that tourism's total contribution is 60% of the economy. How do you discuss the economy of St. Lucia, where 15,000 jobs are generated, hundreds of small businesses, and over half of your GDP contribution, without discussing your productive sector? And so it was felt by the leader of the opposition that it was important for him to hear from the Minister of Tourism what was happening there, so that the opposition can give an informed position on the industry. I've heard suggestions by government people that the leader of the opposition was trying to dictate where he spoke. No. There are only 2 opposition members, and we need the information. You see, when someone presents a motion or a bill, you need the explanation, and it is helpful for you to sit around to listen to what the other ministers are saying so you can get proper context.
Just to add very quickly to this discussion, and it's a worthwhile discussion, but to hear the leader of government business say that he wanted to hear the questions that the leader of the opposition would have so he could respond. I mean, I would expect that the presentation, you're really reporting on your achievements, your accomplishments, what you've done as a ministry. So any concerns that the leader of the opposition would have should be answered in this manner. But more than that, the person who answers the questions at the end of the summary of a debate is the Prime Minister. So I don't know whether Mr. Hille thinks because he's Deputy Prime Minister, he's Prime Minister too. Because it is the Honorable Philip J. Pierre as Prime Minister who will respond to all issues that are raised in the budget. So that is a lame and lousy excuse by Mr. Ernest Hille about why the leader of the opposition did not speak. So in a parliament, let's take Barbados, let's take Grenada. In a parliament sitting where there are no opposition members, does that give the license to the sitting government ministers not to make their presentation because there's no response from anybody? You are reporting to your constituents, you are reporting to the people of the country for the resources of the country that is put at your disposal to manage. So I think there's an over-focus on the leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition could stand and make a 5-minute presentation and say, there's really nothing in this budget for the people of St. Lucia, and there's nothing I can say because it cannot benefit the people. If that was his presentation, would they have spoken? You see, we must put this in context. Every time the leader of the opposition stands up to speak, everybody who speaks after him speaks about him. Not the bill that is being debated, not anything that pertains to the budget in this instance. So they wanted to speak about Alan Chastanet. If they had anything to report, if Minister Frederick and Minister Healy had anything to report about their achievements and their accomplishments, they would not wait to see who is speaking. And how could Alan Chastanet prevent Ernest Healy from speaking when you are the leader of government business, not the Prime Minister that's the leader of government business, you know. Ernest Healy is the leader of government business. And I am sure that there would have been discussion between the Prime Minister, the leader of government business, as to at what point the debate is going to close. So if the leader of the opposition, and over the years we've had it, is when Labour, whenever Sir John was presenting his budget, the leader of opposition had the option to speak first or to speak last before the rebuttal by the leader or the Prime Minister. All of a sudden, Labour is in office and they want to dictate to everybody when they should speak, how they should speak. I recall back in the day when the late St. Clair Daniel was Speaker of the House, you'd have two members, three members sometimes, switching on their mics at the same time. I remember a time when Sir John just came back in 2006. We were having a budget debate and we agreed, okay, 11-6, so we are going to allow two of our members to speak and then two of your members would speak. And you can go to Hansard, it is recorded. When it was the turn of one of the members on the government side to speak, because it was prime time, it was 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7, two members of the opposition, and you know the speaker's head is watching the member that is closing. So the next member sitting next to him, and if my memory serves me right, I'm subject to correction, I think it was Alva and Musa. The two of them were the ones who spoke back to back in that debate at prime time. And afterwards, I said to them, don't come and give me speaking orders. Don't come and tell me we agree to this when members will agree to something, but out of convenience will just change their position, and they have a right to, because it's a gentleman's agreement to do so. And that was the time I said, well, you're worried about when I speak. I can speak anytime. It really doesn't matter. So members of the government must take their responsibility for governance. The Honorable Alan Chastanet is the leader of the opposition. He's not the Prime Minister. He's not the one running the affairs of government. So, he deciding that I want to hear, because we have two persons. You remember when Louis George was the only member of parliament? At what time did he speak? Most times he spoke just before the Prime Minister. And if the government has performed, if the government has done what it has to do, it should be proud and eager to report, not to worry about two members of the opposition when they speak. How does that become an issue if I have performed and I have something to report? It doesn't matter when I say there's always a replay on the budget. You can go and you can choose the speeches you want to listen to. But this is a deliberate ploy to attack the leader of the opposition. And I 100% support the position taken by the leader of the opposition. You want to close the debate? If you are not going to report and then I respond to what you have said, then let's see what will happen in the policy debate. Let us see if Mr. Healy and Richard will not speak at the policy debate. Because at the end of the day, it is their budget. And as far as I'm concerned, neither Healy nor Richard Frederick has given support to the budget presented by their own Prime Minister. And like I said, the standing orders should be, or the rules of government should be, you have nothing to report on. When you report, then you will get money allocated to your ministry to run your affairs. Thank you. Oh, the leader of the opposition is out of Ireland at the time, so I am sure as soon as he is back, we are going to have the People's Parliament, and he will be able to address at the People's Parliament the issues of concerns from the budget.
But in the interest of, I guess, people, had the leader of the opposition not yield to the desires of the government to present, as I said, immediately after as they say, convention has dictated?
No, everybody have their choice when they are going to speak. And I think that is why the standing orders is what governs the House. And conveniently, you heard the amount of heckling and talking when the member for Choiseul was making his presentation. Where was the speaker all that time? When the standing orders are very clear that when a member is speaking, he must be heard in silence. So that part of the standing orders have no value. You see, we cannot out of convenience choose the parts of the standing orders that we want to abide by. Because I spent 15 years in the parliament and I never made a presentation where it was heckle-free, where I was heard for maybe 10 minutes, where people listen quietly. But that is what we have to put up with, because when speakers of the House will not uphold the basic rules, that's why Claudius is a failed speaker. He may be kept there because his government is in majority. But he has failed miserably. He's a lousy speaker. He has no control over the House. I heard the member for Central on the replay using obscenity in the parliament. I heard him tell another member who was about to speak, "Put off your mic, I tell you, you're not speaking yet." And when another member had already switched on his mic to speak, the speaker had already called the other person. So who is dictating what is happening in the House? So he wants to dictate to the government side. He will not dictate to the opposition. The opposition leader is protected by the rules of the parliament, which is the standing orders. And until somebody can show me where the leader of the opposition has been in breach of the standing orders of the parliament, I will continue to support him in what he is doing. Thank you.
Just share a standing order with them. Just very, very quickly, because you see what has happened is that the St. Lucia Labour Party members have misled the public gravely on how parliaments operate. I want to share one of our standing orders, one of the provisions of the standing orders. Any motion which in the speaker's view violates the rights of the minority, then the speaker may use his discretion to ensure that such does not happen. So the standing orders and our constitutional framework has made provision so that the rights of the minority is always protected. And I want to remind the speaker that that is his role, whether he was appointed by the St. Lucia Labour Party administration or not. The speaker has an obligation to protect and safeguard the rights of the minority. And if at any time the rights of the minority is seen to be violated, then the Speaker must ensure that those rights are protected. So they have an obligation. But what has happened very often is that the Speaker seems to be part of the strategic planning of the government rather than being, I recall the issue that happened with the Orange Grove Mall. And if you follow the trends of what has happened, the Speaker sent to get a paper down in the library where he referred to a deed of sale. The same deed of sale referenced a development agreement. And the Speaker did not connect those two things because it was not convenient for him to do so. I have seen his public commentary. I know that he knows better, that if you're going to reference an entire conversation, you've got to take all the documents which are connected. So the Speaker has not taken control of the House. Ernest said to the press yesterday, Ernest Hilaire, that he was prevented by the leader of the opposition from speaking. He is the leader of government business. No one can prevent him from speaking. This is hogwash. This is absolute nonsense. He has betrayed the people of St. Lucia, and it is the greatest dereliction of duty we've seen. Any further question? You've got a few spare? You want to use the mic?
Since you are the mic, I'd like to ask a question pertaining to tourism.
Sure.
You, in your presentation, mentioned that there is a problem with harassment of tourists and crimes against tourists. What do you think is responsible, given the fact that the Prime Minister has said that they have done all that they could for the police in fighting crime, and that in fact there has been a reduction for the first quarter of this year in terms of the crime numbers? What do you think is responsible for the complaint by the St. Lucia Hotel Association about the level of crime against tourists?
Well, there are concerns about the resource constraints at the Grosley police station. The letter clearly says that there's an inadequacy of the capacity of the police. Very often when hotels and other tourism businesses may file reports, they're still getting very, very late responses from the police in the Grosley region. Concerns about visitor harassment on the beaches as well prevail. A lot of tourists are going back to hotel receptions and front desk personnel and are complaining about harassment on the beaches, challenges in obtaining police reports. So if, for example, for insurance purposes or other purposes, when the guest may request a police report so that they can either claim on their insurance or other administrative procedures, those have become very, very difficult. And then as well, there are concerns about the closure of the Rodney Bay police station. This was actually built by the tourism sector many, many years ago. And the Rodney Bay police station remained closed. But yet the Prime Minister is telling us that he has done the most extraordinary job for the police. And these concerns are very damning, written by the Hotel and Tourism Association. So we've got some serious issues there. But Spider, I've always been one that believe if you've got to look at crime holistically. I think that if you make St. Lucia a safe place for people to live, then it will automatically become a safe place for people to visit. So we have to go back to the foundation of...
We've seen the shortage for more than 4 months of the oil that was required to spray the banana farms to bring the leaf spot under control. And we saw thousands of banana plants ready for harvest having to be chopped down on the farms. We have seen a neglect in the drainage clearance we used to do in the in the valley areas for farming. You would expect, with the push to get agriculture back to a level that is acceptable, that you would have seen an increase in the allocation for the agricultural sector. When you put less money into an industry, we expecting a dry season. And we have seen when you get 1 week of sunshine, already you have challenges with Wasco water. You have major issues of production during the dry season. You would expect that the government would have allocated some more money for agriculture. How can you allocate more money for jazz than you allocate for agriculture? We have seen the budget for jazz increase by almost $3 million from last year. And we are seeing a decrease in the allocation for agriculture. Jazz is a 1 week event, and while I support that people enjoy themselves during the jazz festival, but we have to eat and drink after jazz. And you look at the level of production given. You see, here's why agriculture becomes more critical at this point in time. Given what is likely to happen if the President of America carries out his original pronouncements. So if a container goes up by $4,000 coming out of Miami, you know the duty is calculated on the CIF, freight and insurance. So all of a sudden you may buy the product at the same price in the market, but when it arrives here, the price is up by about 50% just because of the freight. Because if the ship carrying the goods was manufactured in China, and that is where I have the difficulty, the government does not understand the global environment that we are living in. We are hearing nothing from the Minister of Foreign Affairs on all this geopolitical stuff. Have we had one address to the nation? I heard the Prime Minister saying, oh, they didn't send so many St. Lucians back. It's just 5 or how many St. Lucians they send back. So, and I agree with him. We have to accept our St. Lucians. But are we aware that part of the policy of America is for them to give you some reprieve, is that you have to take in some of the people that they want to deport, even if they are not from your country? What is the discussion that is taking place in Washington? So when I see these things happening, and I see a reduction in the allocation for agriculture, I see a reduction in the area of the people who are most needy, I have to be concerned. Because yes, you may see it as 6 million, but what we may need is another 20 or 25 million in the agricultural sector, so that the cost, we can subsidize our farmers to produce more, so there will be less dependence on imports from America. Look at what Canada has done. Look at the approach Canada has taken to address these concerns. Buy more Canadian products. How are we going to buy more agricultural products if the products are not available in St. Lucia? So you would expect the Ministry of Agriculture to come up with a comprehensive program and say, hey, look here, we want everybody to be involved in a certain amount of farming So there is less importation. The feed we use, the chickens, all of the things we are doing. We are so dependent on the US market. And I want persons to understand, if America, we're looking, maybe the government is thinking Panama can be the new hub. But if Trump sticks to what he's saying, what are you likely to have if they go and take over the Panama Canal as they have indicated? So there are lots of headwinds coming towards us. And we are hearing nothing from our government. There is no level of comfort. Because this $1 million levy on each ship is additional to what you are paying already, you know. And like I tell you, 350 containers is the maximum that comes in on a ship. So how are we going to deal with that? There is no solution from this government, and that is why we've been saying to the government, call elections. Let the people elect a government that can deal with these issues. What has happened to the 7-crop program we were doing? Ask the government where that 7-crop program is, where we were going to become self-sufficient in these areas. Nothing is happening in agriculture. And I want the media to remember, I said you took a forestry officer and you put him in charge of agriculture, and every farm will become a forest in St. Lucia. And the record is there to show that agriculture has declined to the greatest level ever. You think Musa was bad in agriculture? Well, Prosper is worse. Thank you.
Mr. Joseph, is the government using the IMF as a pawn to execute its own plan to increase VAT on the people of St. Lucia?
I believe that genuinely the IMF may have requested that the government increase the VAT. But a UWP government would never do such. And part of the reason why the government would be forced to do so, that's the Labour government, is because they do not understand how to run the economy. And secondly, they have given up a lot of the revenue. So all the revenue we were making from the port is now made by GPH. So just think of it. If this year we had 800,000 passengers by $10 a passenger, that is over $8 million US. You understand that? That is 8 3 is 24. That's about $22 million that GPH is making that should be made by the government of St. Lucia. You know what that means? It means that we would not have had to increase VAT. And even if the IMF says increase VAT, a UWP government will not increase VAT on the people of St. Lucia. We will find better ways to manage the economy and grow the economy without additional taxation. In fact, one of the taxes Labour has not spoken much about, you see there's an increase in the allocation for property tax. So while UWP gave 5 years of reprieve on property tax, Labour Party government is coming to tax the people of St. Lucia. I think is it another $11 million in property tax?
Mr. Joseph, one more question for you. How can St. Lucia reduce the impact of the Trump tariffs on the people of St. Lucia?
There is very little you can do to reduce the impact of the Trump tariff as far as importation is concerned, it is our ability to negotiate and to look for reprieve. St. Lucia has always been pro-America. The UWP government has a track record. Check our voting at the UN when Labour is in office and when UWP is in office. So if UWP was in office today, I guarantee you that meeting with Marco Rubio in Jamaica, if Alan Chastanet was the prime minister, he would have been present at that meeting. He would have had a seat at the table to be able to influence or to negotiate on behalf of St. Lucia. All we are hearing from our prime minister is they have not even contacted them. Grenada is negotiating. Antigua is negotiating. St. Kitts is negotiating. And our prime minister is still saying they have not even received the correspondence. Is it because that they have no regard for Philip J. Pierre as prime minister of St. Lucia that he is not even receiving correspondence on what is happening when all the other islands are in the process of negotiations? So a UWP government may not be able to go directly and say we are going to reduce it. But I believe that we would have much better leverage to negotiate with the Trump administration to reduce. And I must tell you, you know why our leader is not here today, the Honorable Alan Chastanet? Is because he is addressing a conference in the Cayman Islands presently. Even as leader of the opposition, he is invited to address conferences because people know that he has something to offer on the global scale. So I am very confident we don't make false promises in the United Workers' Party. So off the bat, you cannot say that you would be able to reduce the Trump tariff. But I believe that we would have leverage as a country to meet the requirements of America. First of all, our CIP program would not have been in the chaos that it is today. Why we are being targeted. So it is the bad handling of our CIP program by Ernest Hillary and the Labour Party administration that led us to where we are today. And I think a UWP government can help fix that problem much better than a Labour Party can even begin to address it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Political Leader Guy Joseph. I'm now calling on, well, I have questions for Senator Dominic Fede. Senator Fede, why do you believe that both US and EU are now contemplating to change their visa regimes on countries like St. Lucia?
Well, I've said it very clearly, national security concerns pertaining to our CIP program. You would imagine that with just one company, contracts we have signed, and you take Galaxy, for example, 11,000 applications could mean as many as 4 dependents per application. Now let's just go with a very, very conservative number of 2. It would mean that just with the Galaxy contracts alone, the St. Lucian citizenship population would have increased through the CIP program by 22,000. 5,000 applications for the real estate project in Canals, and another 6,000 we know now for the infrastructure program under the Ministry of Infrastructure and CIP. So that alone is a significant sum. We have not been able to police our own population much less the very, very, very quick and rapid surge of citizenship that we have seen. In the Caribbean alone, there have been over 50,000 citizenships that have been granted in islands with very small populations, very small police capacity and security capacity. And there are concerns about our ability to do the due diligence. But there are also some foreign policy missteps. You would recall that during the Russian-Ukraine war, St. Lucia became the last country to suspend applications from Russian citizens. You must remember that. That is very instructive. And then we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs congratulating Russia in the middle of the war for 20 years of diplomatic relationships. Very, very bad. Here you have on one side the NATO countries being led by America when it was President Biden, and America leading that charge, taking an anti-Russian stance in the war, but yet the St. Lucia government congratulates Russia on 20 years of. Then we went to Venezuela, and we said that no one can tell us who our friends are. We went to visit President Maduro, one of the first visits by the Prime Minister. And that really would have been foolhardy and ill-conceived. We see how the U.S. have had a very, very strong anti-Venezuelan stance. And my position on this is very simple. You're a small country. You don't have the kind of influence around the world that you believe you have. And I think we have to be as neutral as possible and don't get into those controversial situations in foreign policy globally. As well as, we must remember that when the United Workers' Party was in government and we managed the CIP program, we suspended Iranian nationals from applying to the citizenship. But this Labour Party administration, they came in and they resumed the applications from people applying from Iran. Iran has been seen as a country that is accused globally for terrorist financing, for money laundering, and a whole host of other atrocities. And our traditional friends, namely in the EU and the US, are very concerned about the prevalence of Iranian citizens that are now appearing in these CIP programs. And the St. Lucia Labour Party administration, they have given no concern to this. I don't care what they say. You've got to look at what people do. And remember that what we are selling in the CIP program, it's visa-free access to other people's countries. So yes, it's a St. Lucian passport, but the product is really getting to Europe without a visa, getting to the UK without a visa, and applying for an American visa with a lot more ease if you had an Iranian passport, if you had a Nigerian passport, or if you had a passport where immigration authorities in these countries may find it a little more challenging to process you. And that really is what the CIP product is all about. So when we now ignore how our partners internationally feel about who we allow to obtain a St. Lucian passport, it then makes it very difficult for every St. Lucian. So Josh, this can have severe implications for you trying to get to Martinique to do medical attention, for example. That's important. And if you're going to lose your visa-free access from the EU, you're going to lose your visa-free access in going to Martinique. It becomes extremely difficult. It's not just about hopping on the ferry. Every time you hop on the ferry, you will need to have a visa to go just next door, for example, if that becomes a reality. So a very, very precarious time for our country, a very difficult time for our country, and the St. Lucia Labour Party, they continue to mismanage the situation. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of our press briefing for this morning. I want to thank the members of the media, and I want to say a special thanks to those of you who have been following on live stream in the diaspora and around St. Lucia. Thank you very much, and I invite you to join us on Meet the Opposition on Thursday morning on RevUp, and of course we'll be also streaming live that program as well. Thank you very much.